Good morning. What's up? What's up? What's up? Hope everyone is doing awesome today. I'm doing awesome. Now, I actually had I'm traveling in a hotel. I bet you can tell the background. I have a beautiful view of the ocean. The problem is it's still dark out, right? So you can guess where I'm at. And I was getting a really bad glare from the glass. So I had to shut the window. But when I was testing, I'm like, oh, this is going to be such an awesome backdrop to have. But hey, we adapt, we adjust. So, Dr. E coming to you from Dana Point. Not sure if you know where that is. It's on the West Coast, California, right between LA and San Diego. So beautiful, beautiful area. And I'm in a great mood because I've already got my workout in. I've already did my meditation, some journaling. I'm in great shape. But I have a question for you. What is the best workout? What is the best workout ever? I'll tell you in my opinion. It's when you head to the gym in the dark and you leave the gym in the dark, right? To me, because that means you're getting up early, right? I like I said, to join you here 6:30, I had to get up early, so I was at the gym by 4:45, right? Rocked and roll, was leaving the gym by 6, so I beat the sun up double, right, today. So it's a joke, but it's funny how it does work. What if, just a thought, what if every day you beat the sun up? The most powerful force in the world, the sun, right? It is one of the biggest and best sources of energy, and you start your day by beating it. I know it sounds silly, but hey, it works for me, right? You sit there and check that box, regardless of what happens today, regardless of what unfolds. It's going to be an awesome day, so it's going to keep getting better and better. But I've already accomplished a mission of beating the sun, right? That's pretty cool, right? Pretty good stuff. So let's go ahead and jump into the fun. Let's see what we have. Where's my scroll bar? Scroll bar is not working this morning. Okay, we'll figure this out. We got the technology. We can make this work. Let's maximize. There we go. There's my good scroll bar. Because I know I wasn't at the top if I didn't see my buddy Buenos Dias, Eric, checking in from Atlanta. Right, that's my go-to now. Now, Vic, I have to tell you though, you weren't the first today, right? No, normally you're number one there, but it looks like Vic has beat you there with the question. But appreciate you joining me each week. Appreciate all of you joining me. So let's go ahead and jump into our questions. So, hi, Eric. I'm an average. I can't even continue to read this question. I got to jump in. The question started off, I'm an average security engineer. Why would you say that? You're not an average security engineer. You're awesome, right? You are an awesome security engineer, right? We got to be really, really careful here on the words that we use because believe it or not, they program and dictate what happens, what we occur. Don't do this, right? But have you ever had those days where you wake up in the morning and you're just like, and without even realizing it, for some reason, and don't say this is not going to happen to any of us, but some other people might say, oh man, it's going to be a shitty day, right? Oh, it's crappy, or I can't. And then guess what happens? It's not a good day, right? I don't know a situation where if you wake up in the morning and say that, you're going to have an amazing day. But what if you woke up and said it's an amazing day? So same thing here. If you walk around saying you're an average security engineer, you're going to show up as an average security engineer. You're going to behave as an average security engineer, and everyone's going to treat you as an average security engineer. But my guess is, and I did read your whole question, by the way, is my question is you were not put on this planet to be a world-class security engineer. You were put on this planet to be a world-class CISO. So therefore, your engineering is a means to an end. You need 2 to 3 years experience so you can understand cyber, talk to cyber, and talk to your world-class security engineers. But that's not your goal. So why are you putting yourself in that category when it's not necessary? So I know you didn't mean it that way, but I just always had to jump in on that. So you're a world-class CISO that's learning the skills and the language of security engineers so you can communicate with them and talk with them and be effective. So I'll finish the question. I'm an average security engineer. if I train to be a world-class CISO, how do I bridge the deep knowledge, experience, technical gap to my world-class security engineers and my team? Thank you. You want to respect that you have a team of world-class security engineers. A world-class CISO is a manager. You're not in competition with them. What does a world-class manager or coach do to their team members? They rely on them. They tell them what to do, and they tell them how awesome it is. So the first thing that I got from this is you're not in competition with your world-class security engineers. You want to show them that you respect them and build rapport with them. So essentially, they do what you want them to do, right? Just like a coach, you're going to go in and figure out the plays, but then you need your security engineers to run the plays. So you want to have enough knowledge so you can talk to them, you can communicate with them. To be honest with you, you can call them out if they're BSing you there, right? You can basically keep them in line, but really your job and your role is to be that master strategist, thinking big picture, figuring out the biggest problems with the organization, communicating business to the executives, and then translating that into a playbook that the security engineers can execute on and run within the organization. So I wouldn't try to compete with them on knowledge and experience. If you understand the terminology, if you understand the foundation and the functions, that's why I say 3 to 5 years working in cyber, because that's plenty for you to be able to understand and lead that team. But Vikas, what I would really focus on now is what is your weakest area? My guess is with most folks, it's business, it's leadership, it's those types of things. So I would really be focusing now on reading the business books, talking with your team, building rapport, getting them to respect you, throwing out ideas, being creative, being the strategist, because a world-class CISO isn't the one who executes. That's your engineers. A world-class CISO is all about having the ideas and the playbook. So that's what I would really focus on is don't try to compete with those engineers because that's not what you want to do. Right? A world-class coach doesn't compete with the quarterback. They make the quarterback better. So you want to do the same thing. So I would go back to what are you reading? What courses are you taking online? What seminars are you going to? And they should all be focusing on whatever that area is that's not the strongest right now, which my guess is on business and leadership. Can you share how to run a tabletop exercise for an IT team? Trick is specificity. Be as specific as possible. I think we're all on board, but I always like to make sure a tabletop exercise is where essentially you get everyone in a conference room and you run through a scenario. So you're not actually going to the computers, you're not actually launching a real attack against the system, right? So you could have simulated attacks. That's where you go in and you simulate an attack. You don't actually launch an attack. And then you can have a real scenario where you actually launch an attack against hopefully test systems and see how the team responds. But in a tabletop, you're basically sitting down with the IT team. Normally in cybersecurity, tabletop exercises are tied to incident response. You want to make sure that the team understands and knows how to respond to an incident. So the trick is be as specific as possible. Where I see tabletop exercises go sideways and are not really effective is where they're very generic. So, okay, we got hit with malware. What do you do? Well, what got hit? What type of malware? When did it happen? Right? What occurred there? Because otherwise you're going to get these generic answers and all this other stuff. But if you go in and you're more specific, the chief operating officer received a phishing attack. They clicked on it and infected their system and proceeded to infect every system that they have access to and proceeded to start leaking out information. And we started getting ransom requests. What do we do? Right? Pretty good there because now You gave them enough to act on, but you didn't give them all the details. So now the team has to go in and say, okay, what are all the systems that the COO has access to? Where would the malware have spread? How would it have occurred? What do we so now that you can start going in and saying, do they have a systematic way of basically identifying any point? To me, effective incident response is a little bit of both. You have one team start doing the top down, where they say, okay, what access does the COO have? And you sort of drill down. And then another team is bottom up, because if you got hit with the ransom request, you can't wait, right? So you got to have somebody bottom up, and then hopefully those two meet. Usually the issues with tabletop is they only do the bottom up. They say, let's handle the ransom, let's focus on that, but they forget there could be other systems or other compromise. So it's really that hybrid approach that you're looking for. And then the other key thing of running an effective tabletop is, and this is hard, try not to provide feedback or comment or criticism until it's completely done. Now, if they're going off the rails and they're going in an area where is going to waste time, energy, and effort, you can redirect, right? You could be like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Let me provide a couple more details. Let me provide a couple more pieces of information here, because you're heading in an area that's not going to be productive. But for the most part, you want to let it run through to completion. And then once it's done and complete, then you provide feedback others, and then you try it again and do it over. So that's really some of the key tips and tricks on the tabletop. If a specific data was classified as confidential because the CIA's impact level was high, can we consider all risks facing this data as high risk without thoroughly doing any risk calculation? Okay, there's a lot here. So let's sort of start to unpack this. So you have data that was classified as confidential. So, okay, it's confidential information, but what type of confidential information? Is it internal research and development? Is it client information? Is it PII? Is it PHI? Right? Because that's going to dictate sort of how the response level is. And then you say the impact level was high, but once again, that's not enough, right? Why was the impact level high? What was the impact level? So to answer your question, yes, you still have to do the risk calculation, because you don't have enough data to be able to do that, because you're going to have a lot of data that's marked confidential. And depending on the type of attack, that could be a high impact. And if you made every one of those high, you're not going to have enough people, resources, or time in the day. So yes, that's the reason why we do the risk calculation, is to really drill down of, okay, what is really the impact? What is really the prioritization? And what are the things we can do to try to minimize or reduce that? So if you're talking about research and development or trade secrets, it could be as simple as, why is that system connected to the internet in the first place, and disconnect? And you can get rid of all those risks very, very quickly. If it's client data, you're going to have to be a little more creative. So yeah, you do have to have a lot more detail, because the problem with security is, if you had unlimited time, unlimited resources, and unlimited people, yes, you could just be generic, fix everything. The problem is you have limited time, energy, and effort, and prioritization and minimizing risk and acceptance of risk is going to be critical. And that's going to drive that you actually do a risk calculation in order to get to that point. So what do you do for journaling, and what is the content? So excellent question. So I do two things for journaling. I right now, because I do travel a lot, is I do electronic journaling. I type in. I'll be honest with you, I am a paper and pencil type of person. I would prefer that. But because I have different areas that I journal in different sections, I was getting to the point where I had like 6 or 7 paper journals that I was traveling with, and it just didn't make sense. It just was too much to do. So when I'm home, I'll still do some paper journaling, but now I do it all, and pick an app. Right? I use OneNote right? There's just because you can categorize and segment and set it up on the system. So that's one option to do. But basically, what I journal is what are problems or challenges or areas that I would like insight or more information on. Essentially, what I journal on most of the time is what am I not considering? What am I not considering that if I considered would help me arrive at a better decision or conclusion? And then I do have some generic questions. So the one that I do almost every day is what would make today an amazing day? What would make today one of the best days that I've had? What if, sorry, what would I need to accomplish or do today that when I went to sleep at night, I would have a big smile on my face going, yeah, it was an awesome. So I'm giving you variations. But that's really one of the biggest ones because it's all about expectation management. Today I'm traveling, I have meetings, I have agendas, I have a lot of things going on. So it's not a typical work day where I'm going to have 7 hours or 8 hours or 9 hours that I can work on what I need to. So I need to reset expectations. The problem with most folks is they wake up in the morning and they inadvertently go in and plan out a 40-hour day when they only have 24 hours. And if you take away sleep, you have a lot less. So you basically get frustrated and angry because you end the day going, I didn't accomplish what I wanted, but you weren't reasonable about those expectations. So look at your calendar, determine, is every item on my calendar necessary? Must I do every one of these items? And I'll often remove things. I have the best EA on the planet, and she's awesome. I sometimes make her a little nuts. I try to do this weekly so she has a little more time. But there'll be times I'll wake up in the morning and I'll ping her and go, "Do I really need to be on the 10 o'clock? Is that really necessary? Or can someone else handle it? Can someone else take it? And or can we just cancel it?" And here's the part about an amazing EA. They have all the data. She'll sometimes come back and go, absolutely. This is not an important. I thought you wanted it, but if you don't want it, it's not a big deal. We can cancel it. Or, oh, yeah, so and so can handle it. Or sometimes she'll come back and go, Eric, you need to take this call. I've rescheduled it 5 times. This is important to the business. It has some potential financial benefit. If you do this, you do need to take that call. Great. So then that resets the prioritization of that situation or issue. So that's really the typical how I start the day is what would make today great, what would be good. Then throughout the day or sometimes in the morning, if there's something that's frustrating me or bothering me, I just write it down. I have another electronic journal where I have, challenges, issues, whatever you want to put there. If something triggers you or bothers you or gets you upset or frustrated or you don't like how you handle it, just write that down. And then you'll get this list. So when you show up and you have thinking time or time to journal, you just go to list and go, oh, I want to handle that or I want to deal with that. And you're basically just going and saying, okay, why did that trigger me? What was it about it that bothered me? What can I learn from this? And then what would I like to replace it with? What would I like to do differently so this doesn't bother me anymore? The mind is amazing. The easiest, simplest way is your mind is there to teach you lessons. When you learn the lesson, that goes away because you no longer need to learn it. If you refuse or ignore or you don't learn the lesson, it's going to keep happening over and over again. So if you have situations that, why does this always happen? Right? Why is this person always doing, or why am I always triggered? Or why does the same thing happen over and over again? It's because there's a lesson there that you need to learn that you're not learning. So journaling is great for what is the lesson I need to learn, right? What do I need to understand about this to behave differently so this stops occurring or stops happening over and over and over again? So really the idea of journaling is it's a growth opportunity for you. It's an opportunity for you to have a conversation with yourself on paper or the screen where you can actually just spend some time thinking and going through the solution. Because here's the coolest part. Your mind, if we look at conscious, unconscious, is one of the most powerful supercomputers on the planet. Now, you can research it, but almost all the research comes down to the same conclusion. We are using a very small percent of our capacity of our brain. We could use a lot more of it. The reason is we don't give ourselves time to use it. Thinking time, journaling, whatever you want to call it, is an opportunity for you to really run some calculations using your supercomputer. Go to supercomputer and say, what am I not considering? Now, I'll be honest with you, if you're new to this, you're going to sit there for a couple of minutes and be like, Eric is crazy. What does he talk about? Just the best part is be present. Don't check your phone. Don't do anything. Just be there. And after a couple of minutes, and you just sort of relax, take some breaths, all of a sudden, the supercomputer will start working for you. And you'll just start typing some stuff up. And the more you do it, the more you'll get comfortable using that supercomputer and the quicker it will happen. But you have that computer available. You just have to type in the program or the calculations to get it to give you the answers or the information that you want. Morning, Dr. Cole. Best workout is curls for the girls. Okay. What's your familiarity with the fair risk method? Thoughts on its benefits or where it lacks? So I'm not sure the first part, but the best workout is the one that you do, right? The one that you complete. The better workout is the one that you complete and you know that you gave it your all. And the best workout is the one that you perform, that you know you gave it all, and that you're able to work out again. And what I mean by that is that there's so many folks out there that they do these workouts that are either crazy, beyond their capability, too hard, and they get injured. That's not a good workout, right? That's an excuse because now you don't have to work out for a couple of weeks. I'll knock on whatever this wonderful table is at the Astoria, but the point is, I don't get injured, right? Because I know my limits. I push myself enough that I leave a workout going, yeah, I got great, but I'm able to work out again tomorrow. So that's really the trick: is get a balance in place, but don't overthink it. Showing up and doing a workout that you're able to leave and do another workout tomorrow is the best workout out there. In terms of fair risk method, at a high level, yes, but there's so many different risk methods out there. The trick is this: what is the information that your executives need so that you can effectively communicate with them and they can make decisions about cybersecurity? And then what is the information and methods that you need from your team in order to do that? That's really the question you need to ask. If you're stuck and you don't know how to do that, then yes, some of these fair methods or other methods out there can help you. They can give you perspective and they can give you an idea of where to go. The problem is you need to recognize that you need to produce results in the real world, and you need to say, what is the most efficient way of doing that? This isn't a negative against any of these methods out there, but I find that some of them can get fairly complex, and companies turn these in to science projects that you would do in college as opposed to real world. And what I mean by that is I go into some of these organizations like, Eric, we are implementing the entire fair method and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, it's going to take you 18 months. Your team is confused. The executives don't have the information they need. So why are you obsessed with doing this? This isn't college where you have to get the project done in 2 years in order to graduate, right? It's all about what do the executives need and what do you require from your team in order to do that? So I find in a lot of cases, simplification is the way to go. It doesn't have to be near as complicated as there's different methods are. And a lot of our clients, there's a little bit more to it. But essentially, I sit with the executives. I'm like, listen, if I go in and show you, here's what could happen, likelihood of occurrence, cost if it occurs, and cost to fix it. So here's what could happen, the likelihood of that occurring, the cost if it occurs, and the cost to fix it. Is that what you need? Do you need more? Do you need less? No, they're like, that's perfect. So then I go to my team and I'm like, listen, we need to go in and look at different options, different solutions, but ultimately, I need you to give me what are the high exposure points that could cause the most damage, and give me three different cost options in order to fix that so I can evaluate and decide which one to ultimately present to the executives. I mean, that's really the basics of it. You could do a little deeper if you wanted. Some boards do. Some of the boards we work with want it broken down into 7 segments, so it all depends on going in and asking the board and the executives, what would you like to see? What information would you like out there? And then ask the team, what is the quickest, best way to get that? And these methods can give you some ideas. But like I said, just don't get caught up in a science project where we've decided that we're going to implement the entire X risk method in our organization. Why? Because you want to? Because I mean, that's where you get into trouble, and that's where the wheels start coming off the car pretty quickly. So just make sure that you're not making it more complicated. And if you need help, use the method to solve the problems, but don't get so obsessed with we are going to follow this method 100% and lose sight of what you're really trying to do with security. Oh, it's funny. I don't know if that came in before or after, but Vic said the best workout is the one that you can stick with. Absolutely, right? And that's aligned with exactly what I said. Uh, so GRC is a new area created within our organization. What would you suggest as the first 90-day activity beyond meeting with execs and identifying pain points? First is why? Why was that created? You went in and said that a new area created with an organization. Typically, when things are created, there's a reason. So I want to understand the reason. What is the problem? What was the pain point? What was the exposure? What was the reasoning behind why your organization did that? Because that's really going to drive what you do in the next 90 days. Right? If it was created within your organization, governance, risk, and compliance, is that because executives didn't think you were compliant with the regulations? If that's the case, then the first 90 days would be a gap analysis. Okay, what are the regulations that we have to be compliant with, and where are we lacking? And start giving ourselves some scorecards, and then using that to ultimately drive where we go or what we put in place. If it was created because you got fined, right, because you weren't following one of the regulations, right, then once again, you want to sit there and work with legal on what are our exposures, what are our issues. Once again, gap analysis on what is the gap of where we should be to where we are, what is the prioritization, and then what is this going to cost for the different options? Right? Do you want to? I was going. Do you want a Bugatti option? Do you want a Ferrari option? Do you want a Honda option? Why, by the way, there's nothing wrong with any of those cars, right? But that's really what I always go in, because here's the issue: most execs want a Bugatti, but they want to pay for a Honda. It's not going to work, right? And this is an area that I find most CISOs don't do a good job with. There's so much want to be in agreement, want to do a good job, want to exceed expectations, that they walk out of the meeting and they're basically like, how did it go? And I'm like, you're screwed. They're like, what do you mean? I'm like, you basically agreed to give them a Bugatti for the price of a Honda. It can't be done. I said, why in the world did you agree to that? Well, no, I mean, you have to have open, honest communication. So I always go in with that when they're like, the execs say, we want this. I'm like, great, here's the price tag. They're like, well, we can't afford that price tag. I'm like, exactly. Guess what? You're not getting a Bugatti. So then I give them another price tag and I'm like, can you afford that? And they're like, no, can you afford that? Yes, great. Here's what you get. We have to change the model of security. It shouldn't be the executives tell us, here's what we want and here's what we're going to pay. No, the executives can go in and say, here's the budget. And then you say, here's what you get for it. And if they don't like it and they want more, then here's what the budget is. But the problem in security and the reason why we're so understaffed and don't have the resources is because we're agreeing to deliver things at a price tag that you can't deliver at. So we need to make sure that we're always balancing and driving the budget against what can be delivered, what's realistic, and then realign that with what the executives ultimately want. What should be the ideal next step for someone who has done MBA system with the intention of becoming a CISO? Get a job as a CISO. I mean, if I'm reading this correctly, you have an MBA, so you understand business. You understand business, you know business, you have that business background. You have a system, which means you understand cybersecurity. You have some understanding of the cybersecurity, how it works, how it operates. You are a unicorn, right? You are the dream of recruiters and executives around the world. That's what a CISO ultimately needs to have. I mean, it's not required, right? If you have some business and you have security, but you have formally both, right? You formally have the training and the understanding on business. You formally have the training on the system. So to me, get a job as a CISO, right? Start applying, started putting it out there. And it's real simple. If you're applying for CISO jobs and you're not getting at least 60% callbacks when you submit your CV doesn't represent who you are. Because I'll tell you, within 2 words, right? You have what they need. You just have to make sure you're presenting it correctly on paper. You want to make sure that you're going in and showing that you have that perfect balance. Because at least from what you've told me here, and I could drill down if we work together, but to me, what you show me there is you got what you need. I mean, you got the magic. I'm not kidding when I say you're a unicorn. I do not know of many, many people that have both an MBA and a system. That is pretty rare and unique. So good on you and congrats to you. Now you need to make sure that's properly represented on your CV and you're getting the job that you ultimately want. So you're there. I mean, you could always read, you can always do more, but at this point, apply for CISO positions because you got what's needed. I'm a first year university student and hope to become a CISO. Do you have general advice? Yes, learn as much as you can about business and cybersecurity. I don't want to derail. So if you're on a path, a degree now, first year, I'm going to give you different advice than if you told me you were senior, I would say finish whatever degree you're working on, right? Because I don't want you to be a 7-year student. But if you're first year, I would say make sure that the degree you're working on is either cybersecurity, business, or something along those lines. And as long as it's aligned with getting your degree and completing the degree, I would make sure that you're taking some business classes and that you're taking some cybersecurity classes. And I would recommend major minor. So you have business and you have cybersecurity. One of those should be your major, and one of those should be your minor. And then the biggest thing I would recommend is, and I don't know your situation, but if you can do it, volunteer or get as much experience in both of those areas. Find a business professor that you really like and see if you can help them. See if they know of any companies or interns or things where you can do some business analytics or things along those lines. And then either simultaneously or altering semesters, find one of the cybersecurity professors and try to do the same. So major, minor in one of those or the other. And then over your next 4 years in working on your degree, try to learn as much. And either during the semester or summers, try to do some work where you're doing cybersecurity. Sock knocks. I don't know what area you're in, but they're always looking for help. And the nice thing about working at a SOC, a security operations center, is that they have different shifts. So I know some of them in our area. I'm in Ashburn. The data seems to be the data center capital of the world. But in Ashburn, they're looking for folks Friday, Saturday because nobody wants to work those shifts. Those are great for a college student, right? Midnight to 8 a.m. on Friday and Saturday. You get a little sleep, you work on homework during the day, you make some pretty good pay, right? You do that, you're going to get some really good cyber experience on that front. So just try to get as much of the experience to complement your education as you can. Can you please tell us how to define the risk appetite for your organization and give us some examples? Okay, first of all, you don't define the risk appetite. The executives do. The executives ultimately are going to define the risk appetite. Now, your part is to verify and validate that it's correct, right? To verify and validate that it's accurate. Because here's the issue: most executives have limited data. They don't understand how bad the problem is. They don't really think the problem can happen to them. So they tend to have a very big risk appetite, and it's wrong because they don't have accurate data. When I walk in with a lot of executives like, Eric, cyber's not really a big issue. We have a CISO to check a box. We need to do this. We need to do that. But so we really have a high risk appetite. We'll accept almost any risk because it's just not a real issue or a real threat. And then I go into their organization and I'm like, okay, you realize you were compromised 7 times. You're not compliant with these regulations. And essentially, here's what the next 3 years look like in terms of penalty, fines, and potential ransom payments. Then all of a sudden, they're like, whoa, that's unacceptable. That's not an appropriate risk appetite that we want to accept or allow. And then they go in and they change it. So your job is to provide accurate data to the executives so they can determine the risk appetite. They can go and determine what is or is not acceptable. So the two problems that I see with a lot of CISO folks, one is they think they're the ones that are supposed to define the risk appetite, and it's not true. The executives do. And then the second issue, which is tied to this, is if the executives disagree with them, they get angry and mad. Oh, what's wrong with these executives? They're just so short-sighted. They're so why they just don't get it. But wait a second. If what you're telling me is true, that it's so obvious what the risk appetite should be, and it's so obvious based on the data, and you presented that data to really smart people, your executives are really smart at business. They wouldn't last if they weren't, right? They're either going to get fired or the company's going to close down. So you got to remember, if somebody is in an executive position or an entrepreneur or running a company for more than 3 to 4 years, because 95% of executives don't last or companies get shut down, they're doing something. You might not see it, but they got some skills or some magic that you're not aware of. So if they don't agree with you, you need to recognize that it's not because you're smarter than them. It might be that you're biased or you're not presenting the correct data to them. Because if you're taking a really smart person and you present data to them and they don't agree with you, couldn't it possibly be? I know the shocker. Could it possibly be that you're not right? Right. And they're right. So you need to keep that open mind that, hey, when I work with clients, if they are openly aware of the risk appetite and they accept the risk and they're fully aware of it, I'm cool. I mean, I don't really care what your risk appetite is, as long as it's fully aware and I've done my job of communicating it to you, then we're good, right? Security is not about forcing something, it's about awareness, understanding, and accepting risk. So as long as somebody fully understands that risk, then it's okay to accept it. Oh, it's funny. My EA is actually on here. She just said, "I'm here." Yeah, and I hope, Brandy, you know how awesome you are. Because if not, then I have not been doing my job, and I need to do a better job at that. But she is definitely top notch, and I didn't realize she was listening in, but it didn't matter. I would have said the same thing anyway. So it's always good when you get surprises like that. Awesome. You mention it often, and I always wondered. I use OneNote and Microsoft to do in a similar fashion. Okay, awesome. Yeah, that was on the journaling question of how to do that. Yeah, the tools are less important. Here's the real question when it comes to journaling and any of those things. Are you getting benefit and value out of it? If you're getting benefit and value out of it, then keep doing what you're doing. But it really all comes down to giving yourself time to think. I truly believe that everyone, if what they were given enough time, because you have the ultimate supercomputer, your brain, you can solve any problem. You can come up with any solution. The issue is we don't give ourselves time to think. And here's the most dangerous thing on the planet. We do what we've always done. Right? And you sort of have a go-to playbook that you've lived your whole life doing, and you always go in and do the same thing. Let me help you out here. If you keep doing what you've always done, you'll keep getting what you always had, right? So the most powerful question, and this is one that I've recently learned, and it really has changed and transformed my life and how I do things. One of the most powerful questions is this: what am I not considering? What is an option that I am not considering? Now, here's the longer version. What is an option that I'm not considering that if I did consider would change and alter the path of my life? I mean, that's really the longer, deeper version of it, but that's how you grow and get better. If you look at folks, and you might have friends or neighbors or things like that, where their life is this, and all of a sudden, like, it changes. It could be they were a certain weight their whole life, and then all of a sudden they lost or they gained. I have some folks that are underweight and they want to gain weight. So whatever it is, they all of a sudden transformed. Or they've always sort of had a certain level of income and then boom, it just took off. Or whatever it is, I can guarantee you, if you look at that point of transformation, it's because they started doing something different. They started saying, what is something I haven't considered that if I start doing will change my life? And they started doing that, and boom, everything changed. So if you want to change the trajectory or you want to completely transform your life, it all starts with doing something different. And it all starts with asking the question, what am I not considering? And all of that occurs when you actually give yourself time to think and give yourself time to journal. Okay, some of this is just feedback on the compliance issue. Generally assessing a system or network in any organization goes through IAAA, identification, authentication, authorization, accountability process. Why the people in charge are not applying the same process for assessing the most dangerous place, the internet? Great question. Simple answer. Because we haven't given them enough data to show that it's risky. Longer answer. They've always done it this way, and they assume that it's safe and it's okay to do. Remember, this is a hard conversation. I hope not. Remember, I love all of you, so don't anyone get mad at me. But this is a hard conversation because I'm going to point the finger at us. But if you really understand it, it can change everything for you. If an organization is doing something that's risky, if an organization is doing something that's not secure, if an organization is doing something that frustrates you from a security standpoint, it's because you have not properly educated them It's not because they're deliberately or maliciously trying to cause harm to the organization. Boom! Like that's a drop the mic moment. That was if you didn't get it, that was super powerful. So I'll say that again. If you want to change how security is done, you need to accept 100% ownership. That's another way of saying it. So often I see and I train and I coach security folks and CISOs that are pointing the finger. The executives don't get it. Why aren't they doing this? Why don't they address that? Don't they see how silly this is? Don't they do that? And they just get so frustrated and they go, it's their fault, it's their fault, their fault. Could it be? Could it be? Look at me. Could it be? And if you only listen to audio, I'm nodding my head up and down. Could it be that maybe, just maybe, it's because they don't have the data that you have? Think about this. If you have two smart people, you and the execs, and you are looking at the world differently, and if it's cybersecurity, you probably have more data and knowledge than they do. So if you have more data and knowledge than they do, and you're coming up with a different conclusion, isn't there a really high probability that it's because they don't have the same data that you have? And isn't there a high probability that if they had that data communicated in an effective way, they would make a different decision? Then we go to the next level. But Eric, I've tried it and they don't listen. They don't listen to me. Okay, let's go deeper. Remember, I love and care about you. That means I might say things that get you a little upset. Could it be that you're not communicating in a way that they understand? If what you're telling me is true, that this is critical data, and that you are 100% confident that your decision is correct and their decision is wrong, yet they're not changing, it means one of two things. Either you're not communicating in a way that they understand it, or you're wrong. It's really that simple. And when we recognize and understand that where the potential issue, not the executives, and if we did a better job communicating, everything changes. Because now we're taking control. And that is the transformation of a world-class CISO. Well, what I just covered is when you become world-class. When you switch from a regular average CISO to world-class CISO, and this is any area of your life, by the way, the transformation from average to world-class occurs when a simple thing clicks in your brain. You are 100% responsible for what happens in your life. It is no one else's fault. It is no one else's issue. It is no one else's problem. You are 100% responsible. It's a hard concept. It's a difficult concept. I will tell you, there are some people that never get it. They leave this planet and they had a good life, an average life, but they were never world class because they were never able to accept that. But once that clicks in your mind that you truly are 100% responsible and you stop pointing a finger or blaming others, boom, it changes. By the way, this is a topic that at least 2 to 3 times a week I journal on because it's a hard one, right? It's not one that's going to be one and done. Yes, it switches, but you are going to have times where you're like, but I had no control. But wait a second, what if you did? And that's the question you journal on. What if I did have 100% control? What would I do differently? What if I was 100% responsible? What would I do differently? And that is a great generic journaling question to be able to focus on. So not a question, but you have grown quite a community. Would be awesome to meet virtually on a platform like Toucan. I would love to. I know there's different platforms out there with different folks out there. If you want to set something up, once again, can't promise this. We have to be careful. See, now that I know Brandy is on here, I'm like, man, I can't just promise everything because one of the things that I love is I just agree to everything. And Brandy's probably laughing and smiling now, and I sort of know it. And I let her figure it out because I basically agree to 40 hours in a day, and then she has to prioritize and figure it out. So I'm trying to be better. So I'm not going to volunteer that I can set it up or do it. But if there is an option. I love to meet people. I love to sync up. I love to get together. So no, that would be great. And honestly, that's the reason we started this. We started this YouTube live to sort of build a little bit of a community, get to meet some people, get to ask some questions, get to interact on that front. So that's really part of why we're doing this. So great. One final question and we'll wrap up. In doing a free course on Coursera titled Learning About Learning, they also said keep a journal and write down your next day, just like our teacher. Okay, perfect. So excellent confirmation on learning about learning is doing that same journaling process of basically write down your next day, what you can plan. Just because journaling seems to sort of be the theme here. Is the other thing that's really, really effective is every weekend, find a time, Saturday or Sunday, whatever works best for you, and plan out your week. Remember, I'll simplify success real easy. You have a 12-month target that you break down into quarterly, that you break down into monthly, that you break down into weekly, and you break down into daily. That's really the key to success because you are very, very clear on what I must accomplish in a year. And they should be aggressive. They should be aggressive, target specific, measurable, actionable, risky, time-based, exciting, and relevant. I use smarter, not smart, right? And they should push the envelope. They should be achievable, but a little risky and a little aggressive. That's for the year. Then you say, okay, to hit this, what must I accomplish in quarter one? Then once I know what I must accomplish in quarter one, that's 3 months, what must I accomplish in month one? Now I know what I have to do in month one, what I have to do in week one, what I have to do in day one. And if you are journaling every week, every month, every day, and you're aligned with that, I mean, you're going to become a superhero because you're so aware of your time, you're scheduling your time, and you're so focused on where you're using the time that really you're optimizing your life. And that's the key. The only difference between you and people out there that you consider to be very, very successful, you all have 24 hours in a day. Time is the great equalizer. Nobody gets 30, nobody gets 20. Everyone gets 24. Nobody gets 5 days in a week. Nobody gets 9 days in a week. It's 7. It's all about awareness and optimization of your time. And journaling, scheduling, and targets are a great way to keep you focused and aware. So thank you so much for joining me. I know normally I cut it off at around 10:15, but last week we had technical problems. So this week I want to make sure I told myself I'm going to get through everyone's question today, even if we run over. So I ran a little later, but I just want to give you some bonus because of last week where we weren't able to join you. So thank you so much. Make sure you're listening to our Life of a CISO. It launches 30 minutes before we do this. If I can help you in any way, shape, or form, please let me know. Otherwise, I'll see you next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. Thank you so much. Be awesome. And for this week, I want to challenge you. Start journaling. 5-10 minutes a day. Start journaling. See how it works out for you. And then we can reassess next week and see good, bad. And I can give you some additional tuning recommendations. Thank you so much and be awesome.